Hello and welcome to the What is Your Force of Nature interview series. I'm Kate Nankerville of Force of Nature, and it's my great pleasure today to introduce you to Kirsten Keown, business psychologist of mindset. And you're going to get an opportunity to hear from Kirsten in a moment. But before I do, and before you do, I'd just like to talk a little bit about the purpose or intent of what is your force of nature. So I love speaking with people about what it is that they love to do. And I know lots of amazing people in business, like Kirsten, who have got wonderful stories to tell about what they do in their businesses and lives and what they're passionate about. And so the driving force behind the What is Your Force of Nature interview series is to do just that. Talk about people who are doing amazing things, working in the area that they love, and share their stories so that you can find out how they got there, how they found out about their force of nature, and also what inspires them to do what they do today. And I find so many of these stories inspiring myself that I'm sure that you too will find Kirsten's story inspiring today. So welcome, Kirsten, to What is Your Force of Nature.
Hello, thanks, Kate.
Hi.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you here too. I'm so excited for you to be on this show. That's great. So how I know Kirsten is that we belong to a networking group together. I think that's where we first met, and Kirsten has become a client of mine in my business Force of Nature, which is all about LinkedIn and social selling. So I've worked with Kirsten on her LinkedIn profile. I've also got to know her through that time, and she's a heap of fun and is really passionate about what she does in business. And let me tell you, before we get into some of this other stuff, what it is that she does. So as a business psychologist, Kirsten is a highly trained psychologist with a diverse business background who now works with large organisations through her consultancy mindset. Her expertise is in helping individuals, teams and businesses or organisations to thrive by unleashing their strengths and turbocharging their performance. Sounds pretty exciting, and we hear the word mindset quite frequently these days. So that's the formal introduction. Kirsten, would you like to tell us about what you do in mindset?
I'd love to. Yeah, in a nutshell, it is about taking people from good to great. So I go into businesses and look at how either leaders are operating or how teams are operating, and help people to draw out their strengths and to work together better so that they really lift their team performance or their work performance, and are actually able to make the most of their talents and abilities.
Fantastic. That sounds like a great thing to be doing for individuals, teams and organisations, because it is, we all need to perform better and to be successful in our markets and to be competitive. Can you tell us, before you got into the space of what you're doing now, can you take us back to where did this begin for you? Where did you come from to become a business psychologist?
Well, okay, there's a short answer and a long answer. I'll give you the long answer if that's all right.
I think the long answer is really interesting. Go for it.
Okay, I won't track right back to mother's womb, but I guess during my childhood and teenage years, I suffered from a range of different sorts of mental illnesses, and and I guess I was a pretty sensitive, thin-skinned kind of a person, and so I got some help from a psychologist with that actually in my teens.
Yeah.
But probably didn't really sort of start kind of coming right and really sort of working out how to cope with feelings and how to get my mindset sorted until I was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
So from that, I guess I've always had a real interest in, what do you do with the mind when it's kind of attacking you rather than working in your favour?
Yeah.
And what do you do to work with difficult feelings, and how do you cope when things get really tough for you? So there's always been that interest, but for some reason I ended up rather than going to university and becoming a psychologist, initially I ended up first in retail and then in banking, and ended up being a fraud officer for a bank. And it was while I was over in Citibank in London that just one day it just hit me that I really didn't belong there, that I was far more interested in the people around me, and actually really interested in why the bank, to me, didn't seem to be getting the best out of people. There was a lot of wasted talent there and a lot of wasted energy. So yeah, at that point decided, right, I'm coming back to New Zealand, I'm going to become a psychologist, and yeah, then proceeded to spend 8 years at uni, got my doctorate, became a clinical psychologist. And so clinical psychology basically means that you're trained to work with a really wide range of different sorts of people with different kinds of problems.
Yeah.
And yeah, so then spent a lot of years working as a psychologist, doing that kind of traditional therapy sort of thing. But there was still something missing there for me. I guess, you know, one of the problems was that a lot of the time with clinical psychology, you're kind of focusing in on problems rather than opportunities. It's sort of fixing what's broken rather than that whole thing of, taking people from good to great.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to get more of that good stuff that I really love, which is, when you kind of get to harness people's strengths more and I guess a positive psychology approach.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that I did kind of miss that corporate background as well, and I wanted to get back in there again.
Yeah.
And my husband, who leads people, was, coming home from work and sort of talking to me about different issues he'd had with leading people. And that really got me interested as well. So I ended up, doing a lot of self-directed learning and, slowly began working with organisations and leaders. And, have a look back. Mindset was born and now I'm just doing what I absolutely love. I'm in my zone now.
Wow, Kirsten. Thank you for relaying that story. I think that's just so fantastic. So just reflecting on that, for anybody who's watching this, what an incredible story to know that thank you very much for your honesty and sharing your personal and vulnerable experiences in your teenage years. I appreciate you being so honest with us today, because I think a lot of people can learn through the vulnerability of others that, we all are on a journey of growth, and that, Kirsten is you are such a wonderful example of someone who has inquired and learn so that you can create what you want in your life and create a more peaceful mind for yourself, so that you can have the life that you want, and one. And two, that you went, right, I'm in London, I know, I'm going to spend 8 years studying to become a doctor.
I didn't quite realise I was up for 8 years at the time, to be honest.
Yeah, I love that. That rocks. So the journey to go from, gosh, I've got a real glimpse into what I want to be doing. Now I'm going to go and embark on that. No, it's an epic journey, and you're a hero of your own saga. You get yourself there, and then you come out the other end, you start doing the practice of being a clinical psychologist, and then you again move yourself closer to that which you love to do, which is working with people's mindset in a professional context. And I just think that's amazing, and I acknowledge and cheer you on for having charted that course in your life, because I think it's fantastic. And I see it because I get to see Kirsten on a weekly basis. I get to see you living this life where you're doing what you love to do, and it's so exciting and inspiring and just heartwarming to see you doing what you love. So I think it's awesome. So go you. It's me cheering from my cheering space, because I'm gate cheerleader.
I know, I feel awesome now.
Great, that's what we want. Yay! That's my force of nature. And taking people from good to great is such a great, it's such a wonderful aspirational thing to do for an individual to chart that course themselves, and that you're there as a resource to do it is awesome. So I think we're really getting into what is your force of nature, Kirsten Keown, which is taking people from good to great, which is just brilliant. Tell me, can you share with us, now that you're doing that, what is it that you love about the doing of that now when you're working with individuals and teams? What lights your fire?
Well, actually, I've realised that for me, a really core value, I guess my force of nature is transformation.
Yeah.
It's not always just about people, actually. Like, I love doing things like transforming pieces of clothing or pieces of furniture. But the most rewarding thing is definitely when I get to see people transform.
Yeah.
And I love being able to take them through, because whenever you're changing, there's always going to be those really, really tough moments.
Yeah.
If change was easy. We'd be doing it all the time. We'd have everything.
Right. We'd have a magic wand, not a Kirsten. Yeah.
Yeah. And so just actually kind of being with people and helping them to find out how they manage to stay in that zone, how they manage to stick at it when the going gets tough. Because, you know, that people usually know how they want life to be better.
Yeah.
But they don't always know how to get there.
Yeah.
Or they don't sort of know how to stick at it when the going gets tough as they're on that journey.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, I love being the person who's there saying, you know, look, we can figure out a way through this, you can do this, and getting them to that point where they start to see the changes happening.
Yeah.
And to maintain that as well, actually, because sometimes it can be a bit tough. You know, you can make changes and there's a bit of a tendency to sort of slip back to your default behaviours. So, you know, I also love just kind of having follow-up sessions with clients and just kind of making sure that, that they're staying on track with what they're doing.
Yeah. Wow.
But
that's so key, isn't it? Because when you're starting something different and new, sometimes the first month or two can kind of feel easy because it's exciting and it's new, but it is so easy to slip back to the default of what you used to do, and knowing that you're there to help to actually manage that time and to actually cement those new behaviours that's super powerful. So
you see it at the gym. Like if you go to a gym in January, it's packed.
Yeah.
Everyone's there. They've all had their New Year's resolutions. They've all, you know, gotten a bit sort of complacent over Christmas, hit the new year and gone, right, I'm turning this thing around. Yeah, going to exercise my butt off, literally. And then, and then February, the numbers start to dwindle. And kind of by the middle, the gym's, not looking so full at all. So you can actually see that, that process that goes on for people.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I also think that we've got a big challenge here in the Southern Hemisphere because we have Christmas right in the middle of that. That's just a side point, but you know, we've got the what do they call those chocolate covered almonds? Sorry, what are they called?
Scorched almonds.
Scorched almonds. Yeah, we've got the scorched almond issue. You know, right when we want to be getting into our togs. Anyway, that's just the cold side.
I actually think that's kind of a good thing because, like, over in England or, you know, the Northern Hemisphere, you can just pile coats over the top of it and kind of hide what's going on. But here you're sort of faced with the Christmas hangover pretty clearly.
Yeah, you are, absolutely. True. So you can look at it on the good side as well. So this aspect, so you were talking about transformation and loving transformation really being at the heart of your force of nature. And you've told us about when you found your force of nature. You know, you were working in corporate, you were working in banking, and then it was just like, man, this isn't what I want to be doing. Have you got any insight into the process that went on for you at the time about how you worked out that this was going to be leading you to your force of nature? Like this, I'm going to go and study psychology. Have you got some further insight about that, Kirsten? Because I know you think about things and reflect on things probably just as much as I do.
Probably reflect too much at times.
No, not at all. Not at all. I like a good reflector, me. So yes, back to the question: how did you find your force of nature when you're at that time?
I guess it's just figuring out what actually makes you happy. Like when do you feel most energized? And for me, it very much was when I was interacting with people and helping them to solve problems. So I guess I was a bit of a naive psychologist before I actually trained to be a psychologist. And I've always been the sort of person that people do come and talk to about things. Just noticing that actually that it was that thing of I'm sitting here working with spreadsheets all day, but the bits of my job that actually make me really happy are the bits when I'm not working and when I'm interacting with the people around me. And when they are, you know, I do love it when people come to me and say, hey, can I talk through this problem with you?
Brilliant. I think that's a really good point for people to take away from this conversation, in that if in your life you find that your work, maybe even in your business, there are things that you find hard work that, it's like, oh, well, I have to do that again. Like,
Yeah.
and you're in the midst of it and it's really, I need another coffee, rather than the stuff that lights you up. Then it's kind of quite good to start thinking or becoming self-aware that stuff that lights you up, how could you follow that to do more of that? And that's, I think, what you're describing, Kirsten, that you did that. You followed that glimmer and you went, oh, I could be doing something completely different here.
Yes, yeah. Actually, one of the things that I get my clients to do sometimes when they're not feeling very energized in their jobs, I'll get them to just write down during the day what the tasks are that they do, and to put it in a matrix where you've got what you're good at and what you enjoy doing, and what you want to be spending most of your time doing. If you can sort of construct your roles and duties this way, you want to be spending most of your time in that quadrant where you are good at this and you enjoy it.
Yeah.
And then those areas where maybe you're not so good at it, like your skill level isn't high, but you still know you really enjoy it, that's also an area for development. So I guess, asking yourself the question of, well, if I enjoy this stuff but aren't good at it, well, how do I improve on it, and how do I make sure that I get more experience at that, and what's stopping me from developing that more?
Great, that's excellent. So for the people out there, and I'm going to ask you some questions about who your ideal clients are in a moment too, Kirsten, who want to work that out, who want to work out what their, as I call it, their force of nature or their passion or their thing they want to follow, then Kirsten is a great person to work with so that you can work on that as well. As there's a whole raft of things. I mean, you can certainly get better at what you're doing, go from good to great, but wouldn't it be great to go from good to great in what you love? So, I think that's exciting. So, Kirsten, can you tell us who are the kinds of clients that are your ideal clients? Who are they?
Ideal clients would be either leaders or teams. So, anyone who's leading people. It could be a small business owner. I tend to work more in the corporate space. But anyone who's got a team of people around them, and that they're wanting to work out how they do a better job of getting those people really engaged and motivated, and getting the best performance out of them. And as I say, also I do love working with teams as well. So working in a team is usually, it's hard. You've got a range of different sorts of personalities, and it's quite easy for people to not all be pulling in the same direction. So I'd love to go in there and kind of say, okay, how as a team are you going to get really aligned? How are you going to make sure that you're actually supporting each other in the best way possible, even with all the differences that you've got going on? And actually with teams, but also how do you voice those differences and have really sort of healthy, robust discussions in a way that still maintains the integrity of the team and the trust in the team. Which it takes some skill to do that sometimes.
I'm sure. Go you. Teams all over New Zealand are in need of what you're doing, that's for real. It's the complexity and nature of teamwork, isn't it? That happens and that occurs. That's great. And so that people also can understand, can you describe the nature of your services, Kirsten? So you work with those types of leaders and teams as well. So what are the services that people would come to Mindset and invest in with you?
Well, I work in a really flexible way with people. So, I start by actually going into an organisation, or if I'm just working with a person one-to-one, kind of meeting with them and doing an assessment, and actually working out with them, what are sort of the key levers of change that we need to press here. And then depending on what the issue is, what needs changing and who needs changing, it might either be that I just do some one-to-one work, say like a series of coaching sessions with a leader, or it may be that I do some workshops, possibly with a team of leaders, or a team, and actually teach some skills during those workshops, and then also kind of follow up with a bit of one-to-one work as well. So it very much depends on what's needed as to how I deliver the services.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yep, no, absolutely. And so people can find out more about what that might look like depending on the makeup of them, whether they're an individual, whether they've got a team that they lead or whatever, by having a chat with you. That would be
Just sit down and talk with me, and we'll figure it out.
Absolutely. So if you want to find out more about Kirsten and mindset, before we go any further, her website is mindset.co.nz, and I'll put a link to that when I share this interview as well. So it's mindset.co.nz, and you can also find Kirsten, who is actually, and I didn't even say this at the beginning, Dr. Kirsten Keown. She's available on LinkedIn as well. So if you reach out to Kirsten on LinkedIn, you can connect with her there. And also, once you've done that, you could send her a message if you would like to have a chat about something to do with what you're doing as a leader or how you're working with a team in your organisation. So that's certainly an opportunity. So Kirsten, you've said a little about how you can help people in organisations find out what they're both good at and that they enjoy doing, and that would assist them. What advice do you have for others who are looking for their own force of nature?
That's a good question. I mean, it is actually really paying attention to what you're feeling during the day as you're going about your different activities, kind of doing that checking in with what am I feeling in this moment? Am I feeling energized, or am I pissed off and or bored, or is this just really not my thing? And just rather than trying to force it and tell yourself that you should be enjoying something, to just acknowledge what actually you are feeling, and and figure out a way to get more of the stuff that makes you feel good. Now obviously we're all going to have bits of our jobs that we don't like, but we have to do. For me, it's admin. I'm just not an admin person. I do try and sort of, you want to think about, okay, can I farm some of that off to someone who actually enjoys doing that kind of stuff? Yeah. And again, that's something that I work with teams on, is the team actually talking about what do you like doing, and how do we as a group make sure you get more of that and really utilise each other's strengths. But so there may be things that you sort of just have to knuckle down and do, and that's, I guess, a fact of life. But as much as possible, you should be thinking about, how do I engineer my job, my work, so that I get to make the most of my strengths and get to do the stuff that makes me happy. So, and that might mean taking a bit of a risk. Like, I think sometimes people, they know there's something that they love doing, but there is risk involved in getting more of it. So I guess sometimes it's about actually committing to yourself and saying, I am going to go through that sort of risky, difficult period in order to get more of what I want in the long run.
Sure. So that's a really interesting topic in itself, Kirsten, because my experience of that is that when you are willing to engage with the idea of taking that risk or stepping outside your comfort zone and doing something that you've not done before, so it can feel a bit scary, is that in the doing of it, even if it's the first time you've ever done something and you don't have skills at it, but you're kind of excited about it and so you want to have a go, the other side of that is for me, I've always found that I've been rewarded with a sense of accomplishment, even at the early stages of my learning journey. So what I would say from my side of the fence here is that it's worth taking that risk, because the benefits for your energy and your life are so powerful, and that can spur you on to trying things again. For me, it's a little bit like going, oh, you know what? I've always wanted to ski. And you go up the mountain and you go up the chairlift or whatever, which is quite a brave move if you've not skied before, and then kind of expecting that you'd be able to ski. the first day out. Well, just being able to actually work out and be taught how to do a snowplow and come down a small slope is a real achievement. So I think keeping on thinking about bite-sized learning and where it takes you is also an encouraging way to view change and growth.
Absolutely. I'm really interested that you said that even when you're first starting out learning something, somehow you, Kate, managed to find a way to, I guess, to encourage yourself and to feel a sense of achievement even as you're learning. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering, what do you do? What's the thought process that's going on there for you that enables you to feel hope and encouragement and achievement even in those early stages of learning?
Practice, I think. I know that the learning process is an enriching process. I know that if you watch children, we've all been kids, right? I was a kid
Once. Yeah, it was quite a long time ago.
As kids, we're willing to learn and we throw ourselves into it from the moment we're born. Crawling and learning to crawl is a marvellous example of this. We don't stop until we get it, even though it's really hard and our bodies don't know how to do it. We have to keep trying until we do it. That is such a good metaphor example of the learning process for us as adults, that what I know is that there are things that I want to learn now as an adult which are not as hard as learning to crawl, but I make them that hard in my mind. Like at the moment, I've got a goal to learn how to use a power hoop, and I've had this conversation with Amy McCauley, who is Power Hoop New Zealand, and power hoop's a hula hoop that's weighted and it's a good form of exercise, it's good for your core. It's actually, for me, quite tricky to learn. And this is a really good example because I need to keep trying it until I get it, but it's a journey of learning. And so what I know about learning is, and almost for me, if I'm challenged by it, if I'm a bit scared by it, if I'm excited by it, it's a kind of like a signal in my brain that I should be doing it. So I just go into that going, try bite size, but know that even if you don't succeed the first time, you've had a go, and that you keep trying and you'll get it. You can learn anything, and I like the excitement of learning new things. So and I like the excitement of change, and I like breaking through my comfort zone or my, what I call, like, my limiting beliefs about myself to try new things. So I'm a little bit of a junkie in that regard with regards to those experiences. Now, I'm not going to go and jump out of an aeroplane, and I don't really want to go skydiving because that's not my gig or my jam, but there are lots of things I would like to do more of. So I keep working towards those things. Like for me, I'd like to do a TED talk, but I need to keep doing the things that I'd like to do in order to get there, and there are lots of steps along the way.
Yeah. And I guess, you sort of need to accept that there are going to be a few bumps and bruises and stuff-ups along the way as well. And that's just part of the process, eh?
Yeah, failure is part of learning. It is totally a part of it, and accepting that is part of the process. So definitely, it's a good question you asked, Kirsten. Thank you.
Sorry to turn the interview around.
I like these interviews where we swap roles. It's fun.
Could I follow up on that, what you were saying about your learning process? Because what you're talking about there is having a growth mindset, and you're a classic example of someone who has a really, really good growth mindset. And I think that it's such an important thing for people to have. So there's a lady named Carol Dweck who she's a Harvard psychologist, and she has spent her whole life basically studying that difference between, why it is that some people, when they encounter setbacks and failures and just difficulty as they're learning something, why it is that some people are able to actually kind of embrace that and encourage themselves and keep going through that. And whereas others, they'll kind of get really knocked back by failures and go, no, this is too hard and I can't do this. And she talks about, so the people who do keep going have a growth mindset, and people who get stuck have this fixed mindset. And what fixed mindset people will do is just keep kind of doing the same thing over and over because they're good at it. And their sense of self-worth is very reliant on how they're achieving or what they're achieving. Whereas the person with the growth mindset, their sense of self-worth will actually come from being a person who's learning and developing and growing all the time. So, lovely to hear you kind of describe basically what is in essence, someone with a real growth mindset.
Oh, cool.
And you can develop a growth mindset as well. It's
right. If you have a desire, if it becomes one of those things that goes off in your mind and you go, I'd quite like to have that.
Yeah. So if you know that you're a bit of a perfectionist and that you do get knocked back by failure and setback, I guess it's good to actually acknowledge that to yourself and say, right, I'm going to work on this and see if I can actually start embracing failure, fail faster.
Absolutely. Which takes some courage. Kirsten, that segues nicely into the next question I had in mind, which was, what tips do you have for people who want to grow their mindset or develop their mindset for better days? So, are there things that you do on a daily basis to support a good mindset for yourself?
Yeah. A lot of it comes down to self-awareness and actually doing that checking in with yourself. So, during a day, we experience a huge range of emotions and thoughts, and often these things are just kind of happening and we're part of them and we're not sort of even noticing them or reflecting on the fact that they are going on. So just doing a lot of the initial thing is to do a lot of checking in with yourself, and if you know that you want to change something about the way that you think, to actually be able to sort of catch yourself in those moments where you're engaging in the type of thought that you want to change. So let's say you're a really self-critical person. Most people, I was just using that as a random example, Kate.
No, this is a great topic, this. Yep. So we're self-critical, yes.
Yeah. So most people will just, when they're self-critical, that sort of self-critical thought process will be going on a lot of the time, and they're not even aware that they're doing it. It's just kind of part of who they are and how they operate. So when I'm working with people, the first thing I'll get them to do is actually start paying more attention and catching themselves in the act when they're doing that, beating themselves up, and just stopping and noticing that, I'm doing this thing again. Now, it does take, it can be a bit difficult actually developing that self-awareness and that ability to catch yourself in the act. So I really encourage people to have sort of physical reminders in their environment that cause them to check in. So, I'm looking at a computer screen at the moment. Actually, at my computer at home, I have little sort of quotes and images and things around the computer that are cueing me into what it is that I want to be thinking about and the type of thinking that I want to change. So it might just be that you've got, you have a word at the side of your computer, and when you look at it, it's, it's that reminder, am I doing that self-critical thinking at the moment? And what do I want to do instead? Or, another example is when I'm working with leaders, often leaders don't praise and thank and recognise people enough. They think that they do, but then the reality is that when you talk to their team members, the team members say, actually, no, he or she hardly ever says thank you, despite the fact that I've done this, and this. So I'll tell that leader to put 5 coins in their left pocket or 5 post-it stickies at the side of their desk. And by the end of the day, those coins or those post-its need to be transferred over to the other side or the other pocket. And and basically you only get to make a transfer when you've done whatever it is you want to do. So making, doing the praising and you could do that with yourself actually. Like if you aren't good at giving yourself praise and encouragement, you might say, right, I need to do this at least 5 times a day. I mean,
Cool.
you'd be doing it 5 times an hour, but and I don't get to transfer a post-it over until I've noticed something good that I've done, or
Brilliant.
noticed, that's a strength.
Yeah, that's a great tip and tactic for us all, I think, Kirsten. I love that, and very practical and straightforward to implement. Now that you've shared that, because I think that's brilliant. I've been having that conversation frequently of late, talking about the inner critic and how we so easily go into that default mode of criticizing ourselves, and yet, I'm listening to books or reading books about self-compassion that I've been referred to by other wise people who, the whole idea of communicating with yourself as if your own best friend is so sensible. But, when someone first said that to me, I was like, what a great idea. Oh, I don't do that. I'm far more likely to critique myself. And you're right, that process of creating self-awareness is so important. So, but we're talking about some big behavior shifts. So I think if you're interested in this material, if you're interested in heading in this direction in your own life, then Kirsten is the go-to person to work with, so you can create this kind of transformation of self in your thinking and behaviors. So I do highly recommend that you get in touch if you want to have a chat about creating some of this. We've learned some great things today. We've got some things that we can take away and do, which is always helpful and useful. But if you want to do sustained change and great change and big transformation and within yourself and in your business, do get in touch with Kirsten. I'd like to ask you, Kirsten, are there any specific things at the moment that are new or that are coming up and what you're doing that you'd like to share with the audience today who are watching this interview?
Actually, one thing that I do really want to emphasise, just thinking about that raising self-awareness, is the importance of doing some sort of mindfulness or having some sort of meditative practice. And, it doesn't have to be sort of really deep spiritual stuff. It can just be, taking 10 minutes a day to kind of sit and notice what's going on around you and checking in with yourself and noticing your breathing. And I do teach mindfulness, and I actually want to be doing more of that, teaching mindfulness to people. So that's something that, a direction that I'm moving in, because it just brings, when people do actually develop that mindfulness practice, the rewards are huge.
Brilliant. Great.
In terms of how people manage stress and their self-awareness and that ability to kind of defuse from their thoughts, so rather than being all kind of at one with the thoughts, instead you're able to sort of step outside them a little bit and reflect in on them and just notice what's going on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. Well, I look forward to seeing your offering around that. Let me know so that I can share that with the people who are in my network and my audience too, so that we can find out about that when you're offering around mindfulness training, whatever shape that takes. We can share that. That would be cool. I'd love to be a part of that too. So
thank you.
We've said, Kirsten, that people can find you online under Kirsten Keown on LinkedIn and also mindset.co.nz. So go check out Kirsten's website. And I'd like to acknowledge and express gratitude for your force of nature, Kirsten. I've always been impressed with your passion for what it is that you do and your sense of fun alongside of this amazing work that you do. And I think it's brilliant that you have the intention that you have and that you're doing the work with individuals and teams that you're doing. So, congratulations for putting yourself in the place to do this and to create transformation in the lives of others, because it's, what a way to live your life. So well done you.
Thank you, Kate, and same back at you, times 100.
Thank you. Great. Well, we'll just sit here and bask in that now. So what I'd like to do now is we'll just wrap up, and this is one of a series of What is Your Force of Nature interviews. I love to interview people who are living the life and doing what they do in their life, whether it's their business or perhaps they're a professional sports person, an artist or a performer. if you'd like to be interviewed on the What is Your Force of Nature interview series, or you know of someone who you'd like me to interview, get in touch and let me know. And I'd just like to say a big thank you to Dr. Kirsten Keown today for being on the show and for sharing what she's doing in her world and how she's changing lives and transforming lives with her great work. Thank you, Kirsten.
Thanks, Kate. It was fun.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.